Hello, Goffstown. My name is Jim Craig, and I'm the host of Goffstown Today, the local public affairs program brought to you by the Goffstown Democratic Committee. Our goal is to provide meaningful discussion of local and state issues important to the greater Goffstown community. On today's program, we're fortunate to have with us U.S. Congressman Chris Pappas, who represents New Hampshire's 1st District. Chris is a lifelong Manchester resident, is a graduate of Harvard College. He's served on New Hampshire's Executive Council, and he has served in the U.S. Congress since 2019. He's currently a member of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs and the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Welcome to Goffstown, Congressman Pappas. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thanks very much, Jim. It's great to see you. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope everyone who's tuning in is doing all right. Obviously, this is a different moment we're living through together, so it's great to be with you virtually.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. You know, we've got the pandemic, and we see it locally and everything, but from the perspective of Congress, you know, the pandemic involves so many things: healthcare, small businesses, unemployment, housing. They still got that opioid crisis. I think we're just not seeing it anymore because the pandemic took everything over. What do you in the Congress? How do you approach that, and how do you know? And I understand what a different political situation it is today. Believe me, but you know, it's really scary on how we're going to face all these problems. And if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, it's really all encompassing. I mean, this is a national crisis, the likes of which we haven't seen, because we have a pandemic that's claimed 210,000 American lives, 444 of our neighbors here in New Hampshire. And in addition to that, it's spawned an economic crisis that impacts all of us. Beyond that, there are implications for education, for healthcare, for community services, for state and local government. So really, this reaches and touches every aspect of our society. And I think what we have to continue to do is rise to the challenge like Americans have when they've met crises before. We need a sense of common national purpose to be able to address this. We need leadership that's going to be giving us the right public health messages, because first and foremost, if we don't stay ahead of the virus, we're not going to be able to get our economy back up on its feet or our society back open. So, you know, we've been able to pass 4 major COVID relief packages through Congress. It's had significant support in those bills for testing and treatment, support for our hospitals and community health centers, help for workers who are out of the job through no fault of their own right now, small businesses that are struggling. I mean, the impacts on our small business community in New Hampshire have been tremendous, and we have to make sure we're putting more tools on the table for them. But clearly, the virus is not going to disappear, even though some might like us to believe that. And we've got to be in this for the long haul and stay vigilant, take the personal responsibility and do the things we all can do, wear our masks, stay socially distant. But as a country, we've got to make sure that people can weather this tough time period. You know, I think a lot about the people that I talk to in my job, some virtually, some, you know, I can meet with outside in a socially distanced fashion and hear from them today. But I remember a business owner I was talking to in Hooksett recently who said, you know, I never thought I was someone who would have to call the government for help. I have this small business, a family business I built by myself. But had I not reached out to your office and got the small business loan that I got through the Small Business Administration, my business would have been bankrupt and my 12 employees would have lost their job. And I'm just really thankful it was there at the right moment for me. So, you know, I think this is something that no one has a plan for. There's no playbook for our, you know, workers and local businesses and healthcare facilities. We're kind of figuring out as we go along what needs to be done. And we've got to take extraordinary steps. Look, the American people are worth it. And we continue to hear from our healthcare leaders. We continue to hear from the chair of the Federal Reserve that we need to go big now, because it's a lot less expensive to take care of the needs today than to let businesses go bankrupt or people become chronically unemployed. So yeah, we got to look at all aspects of how this crisis impacts our society and be willing to take the bold steps necessary to allow people to weather the storm.
I've always felt that, you know, whenever some major event has caused our country some stress, you see from Washington, some, you know, the good leaders they rally us. They get on TV and they tell us we can do it, and they tell us what we need to do and how to do it, and they kind of get you excited, to we can do this, we can work together, we can do just like you say. We don't have that this time, and I think that's causing a great deal of problems. I mean, just nobody knows what to do it, and I wonder how that affects your job. I mean, you don't. How do you tackle something like that when there's nobody at the top saying, let's do this, and this is how we're going to do it? It's incredible.
Well, it's really dangerous for our country, the ways that the basic public health steps have been politicized, and the fact that mask wearing is sometimes seen as a sign of what political party you might belong to, when it's one of the best tools we have to keep people safe and prevent the virus from being transmitted. So we do have to own up to the responsibility. We've got to listen to the experts. We can't be playing politics with it. And we've got to do what we can. I think what's encouraging is to see that from the bottom up, people are wanting to do what's right in their own communities. They're going the extra mile for that person who needs help, or they're looking for ways to provide supplies to our frontline workers who need it. So we need to see more of that, and we need leadership at the top that's going to encourage that kind of generosity and spirit that we really need at this moment to overcome this challenge.
I'm just curious. When I look at the national scene, I just really get, it's hopeless almost. But then when I look locally, I still see people like your family, like my family, like everybody doing acts of kindness for people and helping people, and bringing people food when they need it, or going to restaurants to make sure that people stay in business. I see those acts of kindness. I see people being just, I was going to say American, but that's just kind. It's just nice, and sticking together. And I wonder, in your experience in the Congress, is there any of that in Congress? Can you talk to people, or is it so bad that you can't even be kind to somebody and help somebody if they need it, if they're not a Democrat? Or is it that bad? I don't know. I'm just curious.
No, it's not that bad. And I think partly what we suffer from is the fact that the media in particular likes to focus on the conflict and likes to heighten the drama and the conflict that exists in our political system. And it further divides us. And then we have political figures who enjoy throwing fuel on the fire and dividing Americans, even at a moment of national crisis. But I've been really encouraged by the ways that Republicans and Democrats can work together. I happen to be on two great committees for that. I'm on transportation and veterans affairs. I like, in terms of the veterans, the way that we can go in that committee room and we're Americans first, because it's about serving the vets. And there are so many ways that, our vets fall through the cracks at the VA. The bureaucracy doesn't always look out for what's best for our veterans in the end, and we've got to wage that fight, and we can do it on a bipartisan basis. And then when it comes to transportation, there's no Republican or Democratic way to fill a pothole or build a bridge. It just is a job that's got to get done. And there's widespread agreement that one of the ways we can get this country back up and running again is by investing in infrastructure and putting people back to work. So there are ways you can work together, and by and large, the best way to pass something is to attract bipartisan support for it. As I introduce bills, as people give me ideas as I go around New Hampshire, the first thing I always try to do is find a Republican that I can work with on the idea, because not only does it become a better idea, but you have a much better chance of passing it through Congress and getting it signed into law. So on half the bills that I've introduced, I've got a Republican partner that's helped me write it and introduce it. And I think we need a lot more of that on a variety of issues. So, sometimes we're not going to agree, and sometimes there are going to be differences of opinion. And, you're someone who served in the legislature here in New Hampshire, and you kind of know the New Hampshire experience, which is, it's what you do after you disagree and how you find consensus and common ground and figure out how you can work together. We just need more of that in Washington. I think we've got to have people who can lower the temperature in the room and just focus on what's best for people, as opposed to people that are just in it for the point scoring and the politics of it all. That's just exhausting. The American people are really sick and tired of it.
I was reminded of Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, they just sit down and talk after, and, you don't hear about that anymore, so I'm just wondering if it even exists. But I do think that the people who serve in Washington are really like us. You know, they're like us, and some people are nasty, and some people want to do the right thing. And you know, that's why you call representatives, I guess. Couple other things. So, you know, the other thing, I was interested to see that you're on infrastructure, and I've always thought that that is something that is just glaring, that our infrastructure is crumbling, and it just seems to me that that would be, you know, kind of a New Deal way to get people working and to get the country moving again. Is there any you're on the committee? Is there any validity to that? I think there is, but that's just my opinion.
No, there absolutely is. And, you know, we have to do something in the short term. We're reaching the end of the highway funding for states. And so if we don't do anything, that funding expires and we're going to see a huge cut. So that's kind of the impetus to get us to consider what needs to be done. But we've got to look beyond our roads and bridges to, you know, our water systems, our airports, our ports, broadband. You know, as we go through this pandemic, we all need to be connected, and that really is the future. Especially in healthcare and in education, we got to make sure that everyone's connected to high-speed broadband. It's going to be so important for our economy moving forward. So we passed in June a $1.5 trillion infrastructure package that would make these investments over 5 years. Unfortunately, it wasn't taken up in the Senate. The Senate seems to be, of late, the place where good ideas go to sit on Mitch McConnell's desk. But we're hopeful with some additional support from the American people, especially through this election, we can get that going again. And, you know, as we talk about COVID relief, we've really only been allowing people to get through this period. We're not really talking about how we stimulate the economy and get people back to work. And I think infrastructure is the one way we can do that. And it can bring Americans together. I mean, we had $100 billion for broadband in our bill. The president agrees we need a big expenditure on broadband. I think everyone sees that. So yeah, this is a way I think we can, you know, do something unifying for the country, and not just rebuild what we have, but think about the future. Because we know climate change is here. We've got to be cleaner and greener in terms of our transportation infrastructure. We can do that through a transformational bill like this. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I was able to put a provision in it that provides for the first time some grant funding for bike and pedestrian infrastructure. We've got great potential in the state to build out a network, and we see you know, the Goffstown rail trail is great, but we can go much further than that and be able to go from the Massachusetts border all the way to Canada if we can make these investments. Those are the kind of amenities that people are looking for here in our state, and I think can help improve our quality of life, reduce our emissions, and just allow people to get outdoors more. So that's one thing we're looking for in the bill, to make sure that it's intermodal, that we're just not putting all our money in one place, and that it's going to support our future needs.
It's just incredible. The things that have been kicking cans down the road for years and years and years, and now it's just politics that's stopping all of that from being done. I think the need is there, as you said, and you got into a little bit the climate change. I mean, you know, I'm starting to think. I mean, that's talked about kicking cans down the road, but I'm hoping that with the ice caps melting and with California on fire, that's usually what gets people moving, and I see it a little bit. The scientists are screaming louder. They seem to be screaming louder than they ever have before, and I know people like you and a lot of people in the legislature and the Congress understand that it is a real issue now. And what's your sense on where we're going with that? And do you think that, do you see us evolving into actually doing something about it now before
I absolutely do, because people are clamoring for action on climate. They're working in their own communities to go to all renewable sources of energy. People are being responsible, especially our business community that's really seeing what's over the horizon and knowing we have to change. The cost of doing nothing is too great, and the cost of doing nothing is going to be far greater for us than to make smart investments, to change policies, and to try to work to put science, technology, and the economy all in the same direction. I think this can ultimately be a win-win for us. I was down on the seacoast recently, and there's a sign that's right along the salt marsh in Rye, and it says that by the year 2100, if we stay on the current path, we're going to see 6 feet of sea level rise, which means 6 feet of water on top of that salt marsh. It's going to devastate the New Hampshire coastline. And we know the impacts to our ski season, to the moose population, to other things that we hold near and dear to New Hampshire are going to be just as cataclysmic. So, young people are helping give voice to this, and I think pushing us in the right direction. And the warning signs are going off all over the world right now, and we've got to do something about it. So at the beginning of this Congress, we convened a select committee on climate change. They've been developing legislation. This is obviously a tough point in time to find consensus, especially when there's this political paralysis in Washington, and we have a president that believes climate change is a Chinese hoax. So I think it's going to be really determinative in November about whether or not we'll actually be able to move forward. We can't do it if the US isn't leading. We need to be leading on the world stage on this. The president's taken us out of the Paris Agreement. We should be occupying that seat and bringing the rest of the world along with us. And we need US leadership at this moment now more than ever. So I'm hopeful we can move the ball forward. We've got to talk about this in terms of a range of different issues, from weatherization to energy efficiency, upgrading the electric grid, reducing emissions, focusing on transportation. We got a presentation a few months ago from some MIT scientists who showed that, you can turn one dial, but it really only does so much. You need to be turning hundreds of dials at the same time to really have the kind of impact that's going to lower temperatures and lower the effects of climate change. So it's all encompassing, but there's great potential, especially for our economy and to create jobs over the long term.
It seems like they always try to scare us by saying we're going to lose jobs and, coal jobs, and we're going to lose all those old jobs. But nobody ever seems to say that, yeah, but we're going to create, lots of new jobs, and we're going to shift rather than, leave everybody behind. We're just shifting the dynamics to deal with the problems that we face, right?
We have more than 600 jobs in solar in New Hampshire right now. We've got tremendous potential to develop offshore wind. So this isn't theoretical. We're seeing jobs develop in the clean energy sector today. And if we put the incentives in the right place, we can usher in a transition that's good for the environment and good for our economy.
Yeah. It seems that things and new ideas are weird at first, and you go along, they move glacially. And then where I think we're starting to come to a place where it's not weird anymore. It's real, and we need to do it. And that seems to be when people move. So I do hope that, yeah. And you talked about this election, and let's talk a little bit about voting and what's going on. What are your feelings on this election and what's going on? I've never seen anything and an attack on a tenet, a key tenet of our democracy like I'm seeing now. I never thought I'd see anything like that, but here it is. And
we've got to make sure our elections are safe and secure, certainly. And I think we've got a high degree of confidence in the integrity of our elections here in New Hampshire because of the job our Secretary of State does and our local election officials who run, the election day operation. If you voted in the primary, you probably saw that a lot of absentee ballots got processed. A lot of people were voting in person. It was all really safe. They took tremendous precautions, and I hope that will be the case in November as well. So people have an opportunity to vote in person November 3rd, or to vote before that date by absentee ballot. You can request one online. You can send in a request form to your local clerk by mail, or you can show up at the clerk's office during business hours and fill out all the paperwork, including the ballot, right there. So we're just advising people to give yourselves enough time if you want to take advantage of the absentee voting option that exists this year, and to try to plan ahead at least a couple of weeks. But it's safe, it's secure, regardless of what people say. Voting absentee or by mail is a great way to stay safe and protect people, especially our seniors and those who might not want to go out on election day or might not know what things look like. I think it's a good option for them as long as they plan ahead. So we're encouraging folks to do that. And we really should be making sure that everyone's voice can be heard. This is what it is all about. We're better off if everyone turns out. If we get 100% turnout, that's a huge win for our democracy, because that means everyone's engaged and weighing in and offering their opinion. And our democracy really only works if people are showing up, if they're turning out, and if they're engaging in the work in between elections, in terms of talking about the issues and reaching out to their members of Congress and all that. So it's an important time to be heard, because I think this election is so crucial. There's so many issues that are up for grabs and are at stake. And I think this election will say a lot about who we are as a country and whether or not we can come together to solve problems. So I think that's all on the ballot.
Everybody always says this election is the most important one in our lifetimes, but I think this one actually may be, with what's going on and what what appeal, you hear everything, and I'm just kind of excited because I really don't know what's going to happen. I don't. But anyway, let's talk about your campaign. I know you're, and see a lot of signs and things out in Goffstown for you, and that makes me happy. And if you want to talk about that for a minute and let people know if they want to contact you, how they can contact you, and anything like that.
Well, sure. I like to measure, my work in Congress by what's left to be done as opposed to what we've already done. I'm really proud of the work we've been doing for veterans on issues like water quality, for our healthcare, the price of prescription drugs. But we've got to continue to find ways to come together and respond to the issues of the day. And that's why I'm running again. And I look forward to the conversation these next few weeks. We're encouraging folks to, take a look at our website, chrispappas.org, reach out to our campaign, engage with us on social media. And really, I think this is not a time for politics as usual. I think we've got to overcome the divisions if we're going to be able to move this country ahead. So, I think we see a campaign from the other side that tends to be one that's focused on fear and on, mistruths. And I think this is a time where we just need more than that. We need to take our democracy to a higher place. So we're trying to stay focused on the issues that really matter. But the input from people, from voters, is going to be really important to us moving forward. As a member of Congress, we've gotten out and about a lot around the district. There are 80 cities and towns in the 1st Congressional District. We've held office hours in all of them. We've done a few dozen town hall meetings. We've heard from more than 150,000 constituents, if you can believe it, over the last year and a half. And we've taken up thousands of cases for people that call our office that need assistance on a particular issue and can help. And so for all the issues that are out there, all the bills that we vote on, I'm in this because I'm just trying to help people. This is a community that I grew up in, that I love. It's always going to be my home. It's given me a lot of opportunities in life, and I want to try to give back and make things better. And I think this is just an important time to be there for people, to try to lend a helping hand and figure out how you can advocate to make things a little bit better. So we're doing that in a variety of ways. And if anyone needs help in that regard, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office and contact us.
Thank you. And I can vouch for you too. I mean, there's a ton of issues, but issues don't go anywhere without people, and people who are willing to talk to anyone who can push the ball forward. And I think, Joe Biden got a lot of guff for that. But I think there's no other way. There's no other way than compromise and moving the ball forward. And it's time. And I think most people know it's time. And so I'm so happy that you're running again. And I think, and I really do appreciate your optimism. My wife always says the young kids are what's gonna save us. And I'm starting to think that that's true. I'm sorry that it be that way, but I think it's true. And so I hope she's right. Thank you, Congressman, very much for talking with us today. And I know people in Goffstown are going to enjoy this hearing from you. And I hope that they heard you, that they can call you anytime that they want. So let me just do a little closing, and thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks very much, Jim. Great to be with you.
Okay, Chris, thanks. You can watch these programs here on GTV through the video page on our website, gofftowndems.com, by searching for the Goffstown Democrats YouTube channel, or on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/GoffstownDems. Please like and share them widely. And thank you for watching.